welcome back to another episode of Rugby with Pads. Today, a little bit of a bonus episode. Before I continue on, if you like this kind of stuff, please go and follow me on all the social medias at Rugby with Pads. You can merch at the store, store.rugbywithpads.com, or get a membership from rugbywithpads.com directly. It's a bit cheaper than going through the store, if I'm honest, as well. And you can pay for it on a subscription model. But regardless, let's get into what we're going to be talking about today. We are halfway through the season, or halfway through the regular season for fantasy. It's a bit ahead of time, but at this time of year, I did it last year. I really enjoyed the exercise at looking and evaluating players who I thought had good starts, or maybe more unexpected starts, maybe poorer starts than I thought they might have. And we are going to be doing a mid-season redraft. So we're going to be taking a look at a draft that I did that was real life, a 12-man PPR draft, half PPR, sorry, that was from the Megala Bowl, which was the tournament that the fantasy footballers do. I'm doing pretty well in it. You'll see that maybe I could have done better in it, but hindsight is a fickle thing, and I'm not Mr. Hindsight. Hindsight is 2020, I think they say. Yeah, we're going to be taking that apart and seeing what we would and wouldn't do now. And then we're going to be taking a look at the only way that I think you should be drafting, and I'll tell you why. And I won't leave any spoilers, but there should be levels to this kind of thing. Anyway, let's join Sam from just a little bit ago and see what he had to talk about. So for this segment, if you want the full experience, I would highly recommend you go and take a look at the YouTube version of this, because we're going to be doing some live markup, and we're going to be taking a look at where we would draft these things just on the first instance, and then go back and maybe look at some of the tiers, and then we'll end up with a redraft. So taking a look at this was taken from my Megala Bowl entry. So this is a standard 12-man league, half PPR. It's a pretty fair representation. And you know what? Let's go and get scribbly, shall we? Let's look at the first round. And we started out with Justin Jefferson. I'm going to put a big cross through because he's injured now. We've got Jamar Chase. Yeah, he's pretty good. Christian McCaffrey, Austin Eckler. Austin Eckler has been a bit injury-ridden. I'm going to actually move him down a little bit, potentially. Tyreek Hill, I think, gets a big boost. He has been fantastic, so maybe he comes up a little bit. Saquon Barkley, at the middle of the first round, he probably goes down a little bit, probably down around maybe 1 or 2 rounds. And Bijan Robinson potentially to the back of the first. AJ Brown, great. Nick Chubb, obviously injured. Let's cross him off the list. Travis Kelce. I think Travis Kelce was the right spot there. If I'm honest, I think Travis Kelce, middle of the first, he could potentially be a bit higher. So I'm going to put a big green around him. And this is all going to go down to our kind of evaluations and when we actually do the redraft here. Tony Pollard probably can drop a round or 2. He hasn't been that fantastic. Stephon Diggs, but has been amazing. And I think he's near the top of the tree when it comes to wide receivers, so let's move him up towards the first. There's plenty of other options here, and I think you could probably look at who you could elevate from second and third rounds. I mean, in the second round, we've got Devontae Adams, probably right place there. Garrett Wilson coming in there. Patrick Mahomes, Garrett Wilson probably a bit further down based on his future quarterback. Unless I feel like unless Aaron Rodgers comes back early, Garrett Wilson is a bit of a waste of a pick in the second there. Further down, we've got Debo moving down a little bit. Jalen Waddle looks about right. Amon-Ra St. Brown maybe a bit higher, but you've got the likes of a run here. Josh Jacobs would move down the tree. Chris Olave would move down the tree. Jahmyr Gibbs would move down the tree. Cooper Kupp, I'm potentially moving him up. I think now that he's back and healthy, he's going into that conversation of that first few. But someone else who I was very high on, Joe Mixon, I'll be dropping him a couple of rounds and replacing him with the likes of, I'd probably even put Jalen Hurts as being a potential first or second round pick, but let's move him up a little bit there. Mark Andrews, the tight end market has been Travis Kelce and no one else. I'm not really going to move him there, but let's go through and try and find some other folks that we like the position of or don't. Obviously, there are some guys that really stand out as being not good value. J.K. Dobbins in the fourth there, injured so early on. Everyone very upset about that. Aaron Jones hasn't turned up except for game 1 and a little bit in game 5. DeAndre Hopkins, name value alone does not get you there. There's been some odd ones that have been drafted too high, in my opinion, for moving forwards as well. I could take Mike Williams out of there. It seems like a lot of my players, I was drafting from number 1 slot here. A lot of my players were drafted wrong. Gabe Davis, Jamal Williams is too high there as well. Jahan Dotson in the 7th round, probably too high. You've got the group likes of Rashard Penny, Elijah Mitchell, who you thought were going to be great. Daniel Jones is, you know what, Daniel Jones could be anywhere. His his range of outcomes is crazy. We're going to get rid of Aaron Jones in the 9th. Obviously, he didn't play at all, and he didn't like his play. And players who we thought could come good. Quentin Johnson hasn't shown up yet. I think he's going to be a year 2, year 3 player. Antonio Gibson has been completely superseded by Brian Robinson, who I think could well go up in the upper echelons here. Brian Robinson, I'm going to push him up considerably here. DeAndre Swift, I think, was a really good value in the 7th based on now. He took a little time to get there. But Raheem Mostert, I think, was great. I'm not sure if we can find here where we had his counterpart, Devin A.K.A. I don't think he was actually drafted in this, unless I'm being really silly and I can't see him. But Devin A.K.A. should be in the mix there. And you could probably argue that those two guys for the rest of the season could be in the top 3 rounds. Breece Hall for the second half of the season, I think, is a definite boost up there. I would be putting him into the upper echelons of that consideration there, as I would Travis Etienne. I think he stands a really good chance of doing fantastically well. And I'm just trying to think who else. James Conner's out, unfortunately, but I probably would have moved him down considerably. Anthony Richardson out. Deshaun Watson going heavily down. I think Dalton Schultz, though, if you're looking at value on tight end, he could shoot right up into the middle rounds there. There's nothing incredibly obvious here. You could move every single player around, but what I want to do is look at the big movers. And I'm going to include Najee Harris in there. He's been incredibly disappointing, although has shown signs of life, even though he's got only 50% of snaps. We had such high hopes for T. Higgins as well. You know, this was just an exercise to demonstrate how different things could look. But you know, on this channel, this is not how we draft. We don't draft by pushing players around and seeing what happens. With which I'm going to put Marquise Hollywood-Brown a bit lower as well. What we instead do is we look at the tiers, and that's how I love to draft. And if I look at the draft I made here, I still stand by the way it was constructed. Joe Mixon is still potentially, say big potentially here, a running back 1. I think he stands a chance to be, if Joe Burrow gets going, he feels right. Justin Jefferson was a wide receiver 1. DK Metcalf is on that fringe of wide receiver 1 too. So, you know, looking at the decisions that were made here, they were largely the right decisions based on the right time, based on the makeup of the team. There were some forced ones. Justin Herbert and Mike Williams as a stack. That didn't work out, obviously, because of the injury. Gabe Davis has worked out in spades, and I'm sorry to those of you listening to this on Saturday. If I advised you to not go with Gabe Davis, I followed my own advice, and I didn't go with Gabe Davis. I dropped him, and he drops 20 odd points. Crazy this weekend, after dropping 1 point the last week. Anyway, what we do here is we stick by our guns, and there were some the decisions that were made here. I think I would stand by, based on the tiers they're in. Obviously a lot of the movement we've got here is down to injury, down to other considerations that people didn't see. The Jahmyr Gibbs thing is an interesting one. A lot of people were very high on him. I was reasonably high on him, but only when I was drafting him as a rookie. I wasn't drafting him really highly in redraft leagues. But let's look at what we would do instead if we did this as a proper redraft. And of course, for those of you living under a rock, you might not have heard the fact at Rugby with Pads we draft in tiers specifically. So this was a tier list I made pre-season before we had all the draft shenanigans, and before we've seen what happens. So let's see how we would address this. Now in tier 1, the elite guys, we had Mahomes, Allen, and Jalen Hurts, and I think, you know what, I really do think that stands. And if you look at the kind of ESPN scoring, I would say that's a big tick box there. I think we got that list right, and I wouldn't elevate anyone else in there. What I'm going to quickly do is eliminate players who I think are going to be injured or not participating for the rest of the season. We've got Aaron Rodgers here. We've got Anthony Richardson. Going to cross off Deshaun Watson, although he could really be down here in the dumps here. Trey Lance isn't a consideration. Who else have we got? Ryan Tannehill's likely out for the season now. You know what? I'm going to put a question mark around Kyler Murray, though, because I think he could still be involved in some way, shape, or form. We'll have to see. So we've got a group of quarterbacks that we want to see happening here, but I'm going to have to move a few guys down. And I think where I had my league winner tier, I had Lamar Jackson. For the time, I think he was a league winner, but I think now you'd be asking a lot more for him. You'd be asking for a king's ransom. He's on that kind of border of elite potentially. He's maybe got a bit of a ceiling attached to him because of the running game around him. But someone who I think is going to drop significantly is, of course, going to be the guy who I was so heavily in on preseason. It's Fields. I still think he's in this category that I put Anthony Richardson in, this boom or bust category. When he comes back, if he comes back, he's likely to still be good. Not amazing, but still be good and have amazing weeks. We've already seen him put up big numbers with DJ Moore on any given week. You know, he's a good player, but he can have those dumb weeks because either scheme or coaching or whatever it's going to be, he can have those really dumb weeks. Those are the weeks you want to avoid. That's why I'm putting in the boomer bust. He's not the kind of guy who I think can be a week in, week out league winner like Lamar. I think for the second half of the season really could be. I do believe that these guys in this QB1/QB1 dimensional were right. Obviously, I got Aaron Rodgers wrong because he was injured. We can't see it otherwise. Joey Burrow, I'd probably move him down a step to this solid starter, but I like, you know what? I'm actually going to move a couple of these guys down. I'm going to move both Trevor Lawrence and Joey Burrow back down to solid starter alongside Dak and Goff. And what I'm going to do is actually, I'm going to elevate this man over here, Tua, into this set. So, the way the tiers work, tier 1 at the moment, we've got Mahomes, Allen, and Hurts. Then we've got Lamar in the league winner status. In the QB1 section, I think we've still got Herbert and Tua putting up big numbers. And then the solid starters, we've got Dak, Goff, Burrow, and Trevor Lawrence with Geno kind of on the end there. I think Geno may be a bit hype on him. He looks good, but he's not really playing that great. So maybe he's moving down to this QB2 world alongside Kirk Cousins and currently Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones, who I'm going to put too much uncertainty around. He's someone that I'm really not seeing a lot out of. There are some guys in this next group, though, that on the slide group that I would probably put up a little bit. And I'm probably going to say this, it might sound like a bit of a homer pick, but I'm going to say Matt Stafford comes up into that QB2 world. Obviously, there are not enough names to be a QB2, but he's definitely improved, and I think he looks great. I think Russ Wilson, he's still there. Derek Carr, he's still there on the slide. The guys with potential next, I'm going to elevate CJ Stroud. I think he is firmly in that QB2 conversation, but Bryce Young, I'm going to put in the avoid side of things. As I am Kenny Pickett, I just don't believe in them at all. I'm going to write off Jimmy G because I don't think he's going to have any reasonable kind of play. And even though he's been okay, I'm not going to put him into QB2 range. I'm going to put Sam Howell into the potential range alongside, he's going to be there on his own because I think he has shown potential. Brock Purdy, if he comes back from injury, has been fantastic. I think he probably elevates himself into that solid starter conversation. Baker, I think there's too much uncertainty, but I wouldn't avoid him at the play. But the person I would avoid is down with the rest of these guys is Desmond Ridder and Mac Jones. I just don't think there is any way they're going to shape up for the rest of the season. So this rather messy group now, and I won't do the full tier list. I'll just talking through this because this is a working session between us. We've got Mahomes. Let me get this right. We've got Mahomes, Allen, and Jalen Hurts in the top, with just underneath that Lamar, I think, followed closely behind Herbert. Herbert has had a couple of disappointing games, but he himself is fantastic, and he's got some great games ahead. Tua, I would be drafting pretty highly there as well. In the next group, I've got Burrow, Trevor Lawrence, Dak, Goff, Geno, and I'm going to be putting Brock Purdy if he's healthy here. Boom bust candidates. The only boom bust candidate I've got left now is going to be the man himself, Justin Fields. On the slide, yeah, no. So the QB2 group, I've got Kirk Cousins for the rest of the season. I think without Justin Jefferson, I don't think he can be as consistent as he should be, but he is going to be borderline boom bust as well. And Matt Stafford has slowly and quietly put up some good numbers, as has CJ Stroud, and I really do think he is possibly the better of all of the rookie QBs that we have left available to us this year. On the slide, though, I'm going to keep Russ Wilson in there, and I'm going to keep Derek Carr there as well. Guys still with potential to be realised. We've got Sam Howell. He's going to have those dumb weeks, but he's going to have some good weeks as well. And the guys to avoid, too many to count. There's all the injured guys, but I would key in on Kenny Pickett, Bryce Young, Mac Jones, Trey Lance. He shouldn't have even made this list, and of course, Deshaun Watson. I think is to be avoided, but probably due to injury. Daniel Jones is down there as well, as is Desmond Ridder. So we have a group down there who I'm not looking too favourably on. Right, let's do the same exercise, but let's look at running backs next. Running backs. Oh boy, there's a lot of MPs here. A lot of changes because we get a lot of injuries. So let's take out those guys first. Unfortunately, Nick Chubb, big injury to you. Who else is on the mix here? J.K. Dobbins, big injury to you. James Conner, Akers is now an RB2 at a team that's basically unknown these days. Smarty P. Ryan isn't getting play time. Dalvin Cook is an RB2 there, so he's not even in consideration there. And some of these guys at the bottom, handcuffs and stashes, you know what? Let's ignore all the handcuffs and stashes because they're just not worth talking about for the time being. Instead, let's look at the guys who I think are in the right place first. Let's make it easy on ourselves, shall we? And just make sure we're confident where we are. And I think the guy who sits at the top of this list, who is definitely in the right place, is of course this guy, Christian McCaffrey. He has been fantastic, and he's been one of the main fancy assets that you want to write home about. He has been absolutely amazing. In this kind of first round here, I don't really like any of these names. And I probably wouldn't. You know what? What we're going to see is, I think I'm going to go very heavy on the wide receiver market because running backs have just disappointed this year. Some of the big names that we saw coming out of the draft, who were drafted very highly, Josh Jacobs, Saquon Barkley, Bijan Robinson, haven't performed on a consistent basis. So I'm actually going to straight up eliminate this first rounder crew, and I'm going to push Eckler towards the back of the first round, simply because he's got such pedigree that I think he could still be good. And joining him, I think, because we'll see it for the rest of the season, I think it's probably a case for Bijan and you know what? All these guys, I think, sit somewhere here in the kind of end of the first, second round. Saquon Barkley, I'm going to move down a little bit. They're going to be the kind of they're a little bit overhyped, I think, this time. And even the guys who I think are kind of set and forget, I think probably Derrick Henry's in the right place. You're going to get some decent value out of him still, even in the kind of later waning parts of the season. But there are some guys in this league winner status, and probably all three of these guys I'm going to move down into overhyped. They just are. And I'm going to admit that I was wrong about this man, Tony Pollard. The league winners, Joe Mixon, Damian Pierce, who I've moved considerably far down, and Jahmyr Gibbs haven't lived up to expectations. And one of the stashes that we have, who I can't see on this list even, because I think he should be in a Bears uniform, but David Montgomery should be considerably higher. And you know what? Here he is. He is potentially in that league winner bracket based on the fact that he's going to get into the end zone an awful lot. I think the bounce back candidates are still there. Najee Harris, I'd probably say he's got a little less upside. He's probably a regression candidate down here. Yeah, I'd say that. But Breece Hall, I like. Brian Robinson, I do really like. I think that's Brian Robinson. I think that's Antonio Gibson, who I'm just going to write off now. He's just not used as well. And I still like Miles Sanders as an upside RB2 here based on volume alone. A couple of guys who I was very wrong about in this regression candidate portion here are Travis Etienne and Kenneth Walker II. I'm going to put them instead into league winner category. So we have, a lot of new names kicking around there. But the rest of the guys, AJ Dillon and Aaron Jones, I was right about. I don't think they were going to live up to the hype. And Ramondre Stevenson has not lived up to his billing. Isaiah Pacheco, yeah, I think he's great, but he's definitely sitting there because they're just not getting the volume to him. James Cook is an RB2. I'd maybe put him up a little bit. He's an upside, but I think he's around there. Alexander Mattison, I think, has lived up to that regrettable fade marker. I'm going to write off Rashad White. He has just been rubbish. And Javonte Williams, it's been better than doubts, but you know what? I think he is probably in the right place there. Someone who I did get quite wrong, though, because he's come back and he's come back good, is this guy, Alvin Kamara. I think now for the rest of the season, he is league winner / set and forget, and maybe even considered a first rounder for some. So if I look at the new tier of running backs here, I think in a league of his own, you've got CMC. I think he's just that much better. You've got Austin Eckler kind of towards the back end of that as well, with JT and Bijan Robinson, because there's still a lot behind them, even though they've got competition, and Bijan Robinson gets headaches. Who'd have thought? He's actually human. In the set and forget category, I'm going to have Derrick Henry on his own. He's just a half PPR monster. That's what you want. He's going to get volume, but there's question marks around him with Malik Willis or John or Levis under play, and we might consider that when we actually do our mock draft here. In league winners, I'm going to put Tony Pollard. I still think he's shown potential there, as well as Travis Etienne, David Montgomery, Kenneth Walker, and I think probably top of that list, we've got Alvin Kamara there as well. Bounce back candidates, I still think Breece Hall is there, and I think he's got a good chance to be good for the rest of the season, as I do think Brian Robinson should be there as well. I think the rest of the names we're going to kind of glaze over because they're not going to be considered in this, but AJ Dillon, Aaron Jones, Ramondre Stevenson, all the rest of those guys, they're not high on your list, they're fillers. So let's move on instead to talk about the biggest group, wide receivers. Well, this group's going to be interesting. A lot's changed, and I think some of the star names that we once had still hold. So let's go through the guys who, we're going to eliminate straight away because some injuries here. There's some really tough ones, and unfortunately, in this exercise where I'm drafting mid-season, Justin Jefferson doesn't make the list. IR could be gone for quite a while here. Yeah, I'm thinking it's a bit of a difficult one for me to swallow there. Elsewhere, there haven't been a huge amount of injuries. Michael Williams, unfortunately, drops out. Who else here has been injured? Is that Deontay Johnson? Yeah, he's still about. T. Higgins, he might as well have been injured. He's been that rubbish. But realistically, there's no one else here that I need to eliminate. For the purpose of this exercise, in the spot start category, I'm going to eliminate all but two guys. There go. We'll start from the bottom up. We're going to eliminate Juju, Odell, Tony, Mooney, Boyd, and our man over there. Who's the fellow who came along with Alan Lazard? And the shaky QB play. Oh, that's Traylon Burks, I believe. Yeah. Kendrick Bourne. Yeah, we don't like that as well. And Pickens. That's an interesting one. I might raise him. And Adam Thielen. Who else can we get rid of who we're not going to really consider for this exercise? We're going to not really consider Brandon Cooks. He hasn't really been part of the game plan. Michael Thomas, I'll still keep around for the time being. Okay, let's look about who's right and who's wrong. Well, I think what we first have to consider is who would be top of the pile here. Who would be alongside the previously named LSU Elite? And it's not an LSU Elite anymore. I think Jamar Chase almost comes to the back of this group. And instead, we've got the likes of Tyreek Hill coming up here, Stephon Diggs, Cooper Kupp, and I'm going to have an honorable mention for Puka Nacua. The reason being that Puka has been absolutely fantastic this season, and I think he will continue to be, and he's proven that even with Kupp in the offense, it's a two-layered offense. It's Puka or Kupp. That's what you're getting out of the Rams here. I think Devontae Adams for the rest of the season, he could be traded. So I still think he's a number one target, but I'm going to elevate the likes of, and this is what I was saying earlier, I think it's going to be a very heavy draft class for wide receivers. I'm going to elevate AJ Brown. I'm going to elevate Amon-Ra St. Brown. I'm going to elevate Keenan. I'm probably going to drop Devontae Smith here. I feel like CeeDee Lamb's probably appropriate. DK Metcalf probably drop a little bit, and someone who's going to drop pretty considerably on this list as well is going to be Calvin Ridley. He just hasn't shown what he has. We got all the preseason hype around him, and he really hasn't shone out. There are some guys who I think are probably in the right play. Sneaky league winner, I still think could be DJ Moore. I still think he's fantastic. I'm liking Brandon Ayuk. If I can find him on this list, I don't recognize him. Brandon Ayuk, I think, could be very good, and he's going to be elevated considerably. Deebo Samuel, with injury, I still think he's got the wide receiver one upside, and he's shown that. But the likes of T. Higgins, he's dropping down here. Jalen Waddle, I think, is probably the right side. He's got wide receiver one upside. I'm not liking what I'm seeing from Hollywood Brown or Chris Olave, though, and they're maybe kind of in that next tier below. Terry McLaurin has been pretty good. Amari Cooper been pretty good. I like those guys. I think I favour Mike Evans considerably more, and he's a sneaky league winner over a man Chris Godwin over here. But I think broadly this feels okay. I'd probably elevate Michael Pittman, and I'm going to put a plus on Josh Downs as he has emerged as being brilliant. As I have for Addison, I think now Addison is in this sneaky league winner section as well. Everyone else here, I feel like, is probably appropriately marked, depending on wide receiver two stashes. I'm going to drop heavily this guy, Hopkins, and I am going to raise up Christian Kirk. He's going to swap places with Calvin Ridley here. So, how does this balance out? Let's finalize a couple of two. I think got wide receiver one upside with him, with Adam Thielen. Likewise with Pickens. Even though they've got poor quarterback play, I think everyone else feels about right. So let's start with a very messy mock-up here. We've got in the formerly LSU elite, we've got at the front of here, we've got Tyreek Hill. I just can't see past him. But I think Stephon Diggs is just closely behind him. Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua there as well. AJ Brown, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and Keenan Allen. I just think you need one of those guys to compete. I think is the rule here. And then that kind of number one target slot, I think Devontae Adams is probably well placed, and in the set and forget category, I feel CeeDee Lamb is pretty much in there. But those are your guys who are going to be your consistents. That those guys and upwards. Behind him, you've got DJ Moore, Christian Kirk. I like a lot in that group as well, and Mike Evans. I think they are sneaky league winners. I'm going to put Brandon Ayuk in that as well, because I think with Debo out, he could definitely be a plus play, as well as Addison. I think he's already shown that he can step into Justin Jefferson's shoes in given weeks. Let's hope that continues on. With wide receiver upside, yeah, you've still got Garrett Wilson. I think he can still do it on any given day. Jalen Waddle, Pickens and Thielen being the surprise one, and Pittman and Josh Downs, I think, have enormous potential together. And if Gardner Minshew plays for the rest of the season, they definitely do. Chris Godwin, I think, was well placed in that kind of dependable wide receiver 2/flex play. Terry McLaurin and Amari Cooper probably just above them, but I think the volume doesn't play. Someone who I missed out here, Tyler Lockett, has dropped out in my consideration and is probably in that kind of volume concern, especially with the likes of JSN and Jake Bobo coming in relief of DK Metcalf last week. The rest of these guys, yeah, I think they're roughly right placed. Deontay Johnson, I think, could potentially climb up a little bit. So maybe he's a throw you want to do there. Drake London, week-on-week dependencies, I don't really like. And then you've got the rest of the guys. So you'll have to make your decisions based on that. This felt easier than it was, because I just want to put loads of people there. And we'll probably see when we do the mock draft how it all balances out. But before we do that, let's go on to our final position, of course, tight ends. So previously, this is one of the easiest groups to sort out, because there's the haves and the have-nots. It's almost two groups, but standing above everyone else is Mr. Swift himself. Killer Travis Kelce is just way better than everyone else. But I do think there's maybe a bit of a mix around the next guys. And out of these next 6 guys, you could probably move guys up or down as you see fit. I think the only one who really drops out of that mix is possibly Kyle Pitts, although we've seen him, be solid in the last couple of weeks. But I would put Jonnu Smith in that solid picture. So, you start off with Killer Trav, and then I still think Mark Andrews and TJ Hawkinson are the next guys. Maybe, and this probably sounds sacrilegious because he's so nice, I would probably drop because he's so boom bust. It's Kittle because he blocks too much, and it's really sad to say. After slow starts, I think we're probably looking at these 2 guys. We're looking at Goddard and Waller increase their stake a little bit. Evan Ingram, I think I would move him. I'll probably swap him with Kyle Pitts there. But everyone else just isn't doing that great. And if I kind of mark off people who I'm not even considering anymore, I'm not considering Pat Fryermuth anymore. Chiga Kwankwo hasn't done great. Juwan Johnson hasn't done great. Is that Durham Smythe? Oh, I don't know why I put him in here. I've already talked about this guy, Tyler Higbee, in a previous episode. I think he's a drop-off candidate. Hunter Henry is not dependable week on week. Dawson Knox is now injured. Gerald Everett has his days. I think I probably would elevate Cade Otton a little bit. He's probably got a bit more upside than David Njoku, but we've seen in the past that the Browns cannot support a good fancy tight end. Greg Dulcich on IR. Irv Smith's done nothing. Sam Laporta? I believe it is. Sam Laporta, though, I am going to put in here set and forget. I've had him in a couple of places, and he has been absolutely lights out. But the rest of these guys, there is still a huge amount of confusion. And if I go through this list here, Michael Mayer, it's a couple of spike weeks. I wouldn't be drafting him in any way, shape or form in value. Hayden Hurst, Noah Fant, not worth it. I think this is Jake Ferguson. I don't know, but either way, he's not getting the list. Moali Cox, Tucker Kraft. No, it's not Tucker Kraft. That's Tyler Conklin. This is Luke Musgrave. You know what? Luke Musgrave maybe, but he's still so much confusion around him, seeming as his coach chewed him out the other day. And Zach Ertz and Logan Thomas, I'm not even really considering here. So there's a lot of red markers here. I think this is straightforward. You want Killer Trav. You want Mark Andrews, and you probably want Hawkinson or Waller. That's your top 4, I would say. Goddard comes slowly behind, quite quietly behind there. Evan Ingram, a bit more solid. And if you're brave, I think George Kittle can have his weeks. And then you're looking at Pitts and Jonnu Smith, and then everyone else. All these guys, there's just a massive question mark about, and I am not looking to draft them anytime soon. So, nice and easy tier list there for you. Right. That's all the position tiers going on. Let's take a look at actually doing a draft, shall we? Okay, let's get into this. I've set up a PPR draft, 12-man, and you know what? 101, it can only be one guy based on mid-season. It's going to be Christian McCaffrey. Why we doubted him earlier in the season, I do not know, but he has been fantastic. And pairing him, it might sound obvious if you listen to the rest of the show, it's going to be Tyreek Hill. PPR upside, he has been so fantastic. I think these make the obvious 1-2, but where we might get a bit controversial is at the 3-4. And I'm going to go with my 103 here. I'm going to go with Stephon Diggs. Now, if we look at Stephon Diggs as a player, he's been lights out. I mean, his one down week was week 2 against Vegas, where they probably ran the ball all over them, I guess. But, 26, 13, 19, 36, 24, 20, 17, a down week this week against Tampa Bay with 16 points. You just need to have him in your lineup. And what you want at your first round pick is just not to kill you. And another guy who I think is joins that list is going to be Keenan Allen. Not a sexy pick here, but I think based on the fact that his opportunity is so much higher with other people out of the lineup, I think it's great. And he can give you spike weeks as well. So he's maybe a bit more risky. And a lot of people see him as a 2. He needs a 1 in there to kind of match up against him. But, 14, 31, 35, 12 by 21, 9 being a down week against Kansas City, who were Kansas City. And it was just a weird game for the Chargers anyway. I think that's a cracking performance regardless, and someone who you'd want to have in your lineup. Next, I'm going to go for another wide receiver because I think at this point of the season, you want wide receivers. These ADPs mean nothing to me, but I'm going to go with AJ Brown. And a lot of people would take him higher. He's shown ups and downs, as has Jalen Hurts, but even still, so much consistency. Look at that green. New England, 15 points. You still wouldn't be unhappy with that. 7 points, 22, 38, 18, 20, 29 last week, and up against Washington this week. I think he's going to have an amazing time. And he got a season high 15 targets in a win last week against a strong Miami team. I think he's shown that he's matchup proof and he's going to be brilliant. And this is where first controversial pick maybe, because we haven't seen enough of him yet, and he had a bit of a down week last week. It's going to be Cooper Kupp. When he was still semi-injured, he came back and he pulled out. With a 90, he's on the field the whole time. 19 points, 27, 6.9 last week, but that was because it was a Puka Nacua week, and it was just a crazy turn of events. Anyway, you need Cooper Kupp because he's one of two options in that offense, not even two receiving options. I think he's fantastic. I think at this point, I'm going to pivot and I'm going to go Austin Ekeler. Austin Ekeler, he hasn't been around, but I think he shows so much. He's just so much swag, and you just see how he's going to be built up. And looking at these next few games, Chicago, New York Jets, Detroit, Green Bay, you can run on some of these teams. And if not, he is a viable number 2 target in that offense behind Keenan Allen. And I still have faith in him, and I still have faith in Kellen Moore, even though we haven't seen it yet. At this point, at the 1-8, I think he's been sitting on the board long enough, but Travis Kelce goes there. I'm not going to go into his sheet because actually, I'd be interested to see quickly. Oh, it doesn't show Taylor Swift anymore. I think it did for a little while, but just look at those stats. They're crazy. 12, 19, 12, 22, 31, 36. And he's got Denver this week. He's going to tear that up, I think. I feel like the guy at number 9 here, probably going to be worried about running out of decent wide receivers, and I'm going to go for that LSU candidate. I'm going to go Jamar Chase. Yes, hasn't had the best of starts to the season. No, not been bad. He's had spike weeks. He had a 52 week against Arizona. That was crazy. But that's mainly because Joe Burrow's been hampered as well. I think, he's got San Francisco this week, who showed vulnerability against the Vikings. He could be really interesting this week and moving forwards as well. And then I'm going to go with a guy who doesn't even appear on this first few lists here. I'm going to go with someone who I'm going to go dive in a little bit, and that's something I've seen. Just he passes the eye test, and it's going to be Travis Etienne. The Jags are different. They're not a Trevor Lawrence-led offense. They're a running-led offense, and Travis Etienne has slowly been getting more and more efficient. Still kicking around the 85% mark of snaps played. He does great. He's obviously battered off competition from Tank Bigsby. His average point is crazy, and it's someone that you really want. And he's just got a very safe floor, I feel like. And the Jags feel like they're hanging around in games, which means Travis Etienne is going to be used more often, and he's being used more often in the end zone, which I really like. But I think the next guy that comes off the list, it's not going to be who you think, because I'm kind of changing my mind about who I'd want and how I'd set up this team if I was drafting in this position based on what I've seen before me. And I want to take players away from people who I think could have really good stacks, and one of that is going to be Josh Allen. Yeah, I think Josh Allen is going to go here. Josh Allen shows so much upside, even when he plays bad, even when the team plays badly, as in last night when he scores 30 points. He scored 25 points in a loss against New England. It's crazy how good he is. He's got rushing upside. He's got passing upside. 3 total touchdowns yesterday. He's fantastic. And then this is being recorded on a Friday, by the way, so I've just watched the Thursday night recap. At the number 12 slot here, this is a tough one, but I'm going to go with this guy trying to go for the stack later on, and we're going to go with Jalen Hurts. Again, for the rest of the season, I'm seeing rushing upside as being so critical for quarterbacks, and with these guys, it is sustainable with Jalen Hurts and Josh Allen. I mean, if we have a look on the season, I'm not sure how many rushing yards he's got, but he's consistently getting 30, 40, 50, 70 rushing yards against the Rams here. he's just good, and I think he's going to be fantastic. I mean, looks here, 274 rushing yards, 6 rushing touchdowns. That tush push is a cheat code for him. And then we move it into the second round. We're going to run a bit faster here. This guy in the 112 after getting Jalen Hurts, I think he needs a wide receiver because the run on that wide receiver group was fast. And you can see we only had 3 running backs in the first round, 2 quarterbacks, 1 tight end, and so many receivers. We're going to go receiver there. Josh Allen, I think, again, he might see the right on the wall and think, right, I need to strengthen at running back here. And I'm going to go with a guy who I think has shown so much upside. He got the bag. It's going to be someone who is really low rated in this ADP. Jonathan Taylor, I think, has so much upside left in him. We look at his splits last week, and on 50% of the snaps, he got 21 points. I think that's crazy. And I think that's only going to increase as they use him more. They paid him. They want to use him. I think he knows that. We'll have to see what comes. And I think Jonathan Taylor, he passed the eye test for me last week. To go with Travis Etienne, we're going to go with that tier break. I think he's probably on the edge of that tier break for wide receivers. We're going to go with Devontae Adams. So this guy, Sam here, at the 10th spot at 203 here, going Devontae Adams to pair with Travis Etienne. And then we're going to go with someone who I still think is maybe a tier break on this running back here, but we're going to go with Kenneth Walker here. Someone who didn't appear on my my list earlier, by the way, was DeAndre Swift, who I'll talk about in a bit. But yeah, there was some people here that I was looking through his list, and they weren't even on my tier list before, which is absolutely crazy. So yeah, a lot has changed. But there is an obvious move here. Travis Kelce, who would you want to pair him with? Running back, you say? No, you want to pair him with the guy who's going to throw lasers to him all the time. And Patrick Mahomes here is going to make it at the 205 to pair with Travis Kelce. It's a bold strategy, but you've effectively got a wide receiver in Travis Kelce. So you're not too different to a lot of the guys around you in terms of drafting. And you've got to draft in those patterns. You've got to draft in those tiers to make sure that you're not missing out. Pairing with Austin Eckler, I'm going to pair with a massive upside player who is still on that kind of cusp of greatness. I think he's probably at that. Him and Devontae Adams, I think, are interchangeable. I think probably Devontae Adams has a safer floor, especially if it gets traded. Maybe there's a bit more upside there. But Puka Nacua to pair with Austin Eckler, I don't need to go on about how good Puka Nacua actually is. He is just absolutely fantastic. I mentioned DeAndre Swift here. I think he has got a massive amount of upside. I did pair him originally when I was looking at this with AJ Brown, but I think you don't want too many of those players unless you're getting actual stacks. So I'm going to pair him with the guy who's got Cooper Kupp, and just after that, I've got to have Bijan Robinson. Bijan Robinson has dropped a little bit in my rankings, not because I think he's a bad player or because of anything else. I just think Arthur Smith isn't a great coach. And he showed that last week by putting him out there, not putting him on the injury report. It's just he's not looking after him. He's not looking after his best interests. I think that's where he should sit there. There's another obvious player to pair with Keenan Allen here, and it is going to be Justin Herbert. He's probably on that next tier down of guys, of those QB1s with a lot of upside. But he trumps some of the guys above him simply because who you're pairing him with. And then I'm going to go with one of the final kind of running backs in that next tier, that kind of league winner tier. I'm going to go with Mr. Tony Pollard, who I didn't select properly there. I need to go do that again. It's tough doing things when people are watching over your back, or virtually watching over your back anyway. At the 211, we are going to go pair. Obviously, we're going to get a lot of stacks here, and I like this because it just allowed me to do things that I like. We're going to go Tyreek Hill followed by Tua Tagovailoa, and finally at the 2-3 turn, the last of the great quarterbacks, in my opinion, we've got Lamar Jackson. Now, just running through that, and then we'll run through the last round. We have, from the number 1 slot, we've got CMC paired with Lamar Jackson, Tua paired with Tyreek Hill, we've got Pollard paired with Diggs, Herbert based with Allen, Bijan Robinson, AJ Brown, Kupp and Swift. I like that combination. I think that's low-key pretty interesting. And you normally see some funny ones in the middle of rounds. At the 7 slot, Eckler and Nacua. 8 slot, Kelce and Mahomes. 9th slot, we've got Chase and Walker. 10th slot, Etienne Adams. 11th slot, Allen and Taylor, and 12th slot, Hurts and AJ Brown and Amon-Ra St. Brown. There's some really, really interesting teams here. But you know what? I'm going to continue on for the 301, and this will be the last round we do. We'll just whiz through this one. I'm going to go with the obvious stack. The number one target for Lamar Jackson is going to be Andrews, leaving that team with CMC, Lamar Jackson, and Andrews. At the 2 slot, it's going to be a guy who I did say before has a massive league winning upside, and it's not going to be someone who I talked about a lot at the start of the season. It's going to be Alvin Kamara. He's just a PPR monster, and even in half PPR, you really want him just for the amount of targets that he's going to get thrown by Derek Carr and those dump offs. So Tua, Tyreek, and Kamara. That is a mean looking lineup. I'm going to go with Michael Pittman in the 3rd slot here. Yeah, I really like it. Diggs, Pollard, and Pittman. It's just a solid lineup. I think very dependable. And when you're drafting for the 3rd, that's what you want. You want dependable there. I did go Jahmyr Gibbs here, and I still think I would go there because I still think he shows upside. But I'm instead going to switch him out for Montgomery because I think just the you've got high dependability and you've got high boom bust ability from Justin Herbert and Keenan Allen, but you would expect those two down the stretch to be thrown to each other a lot. David Montgomery, I think, gives you such touchdown upside. He can be a weak winner on his own to just balance out that team a little bit. At this slot, I'm going to go with one of my league winners. I'm going to go with Mike Evans. So in that team, it's AJ Brown, Breton Robinson, Mike Evans. That is a mean looking lineup. I really like that. To pair with Cooper Kupp and DeAndre Swift, I'm going to go with another league winner, Brandon Ayuk, for the 49ers. That's a really interesting lineup. Cooper Kupp and that was the last set. Austin Eckler, Puka Nacua. I'm going to go with another running back here. I feel like Puka Nacua has such good value in receptions. You need guys who can score on the floor, and Breece Hall is that primary touchdown machine for the Jets. I think he could be really interesting. I feel like I need to balance this side out a little bit. This is a really tough one because you've got a tight end who's a wide receiver. I think you need to go Derrick Henry here. I think you need to just to get a bit more dependability because if they're not playing, you need someone who's going to do it. You're sacrificing a week on buys, although they may have already had the buy. I can't remember. It's either Jahmyr Gibbs for upside or Derrick Henry. I'm going to go Derrick Henry. I think that makes sense. With Chase and Kenneth Walker, that's where I'm going to go to Jahmyr Gibbs. I still do have a lot of faith in him. I think that team is just going to be great no matter what. So yeah, with Chase, Walker, I've got Gibbs for the upside play here after you've got two guys who I think have relatively safe floors, I would hope. Travis Etienne has such a fantastic floor. I really do like that. And Devontae Adams should do as well. I'm going to go with another reasonably safe floor play, and then they can swing for the fences later on. CD Lamb, Travis Etienne, Devontae Adams, and CD Lamb. With Josh Allen and Jonathan Taylor, you need a final wide receiver. And I mean, any of these guys I see on the first page here, I was so high on DK Metcalf, I wouldn't draft him there now. I'm going to do DJ Moore. I think you just need to swing for the fences with him. I think he could be a week winner in any given week. And finally, at the 12 slot, I mentioned earlier that I was going to seek the stack, and luckily, because I'm doing this all myself, it falls to him. Devontae Smith, I think, is the top wide receiver 2 option there. It's a tough spot to be in the 12 in a mid-season redraft because everyone knows so much more. But Jalen Hurts, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and Devontae Smith. Now, I'll put them all in the thing below. I might put a poll down in there as well. But let me know what you think. Who is the best lineup here, and who would you want to have as part of your mid-season redraft? Once again, thank you so much for listening. You probably heard at the start of the show, but if you like, subscribe, all that kind of fun stuff. Follow me on all the socials, rugbywithpads.com, store.rugbywithpads.com if you like merch like this. We've got a load of different designs. I'll flash it up here somewhere or there, wherever I decide to do it in post. I will be back on Monday or Tuesday with an episode for waivers and reactions to Week 8. If you haven't already done so, go back and listen to the Week 8 preview show. It came out on Thursday. This has been recorded on Thursday, so it came out today, in fact. But now we're in the future. All very weird. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed this kind of bonus little content, and it gives you a little bit of fancy stuff before the week really starts. If you haven't already set your clocks, clocks do go back tomorrow. This is Saturday tomorrow, so Red Zone starts an hour earlier, which is great. We get to watch more football if your significant others allow it. That is, yeah, so that's a thing. Anyway, thank you so much for listening. I will see you all very soon on the Virtual Gridiron.